Welcome to The Naked Truth. And now, your host, Bridget Barclay.
Good evening, America, and good early morning here in England. Tonight's guest is Thomas Jane. Now, he does various podcasts recently on UAPs. Well, I'll always call them UFOs, but as you know, that this is what we're here for, to talk about the disclosure. So my guest tonight is Thomas Jane, popular and very well known from his films and his TV shows, including The Punisher. Yes. The Mist, yes. Predator, The Vanished, great film. Dreamcatcher, Face Off, fantastic film. And Yellowstone City, thank you. Just to name a few. While these projects have made him well-known figure in the entertainment business, he's also part of the Hollywood Alliance, Disclosure Alliance, which also I'm hugely privileged to be a part of, which is the founder of Steve Bassett and Dave Harary. Basically, it pushes people into the focus of UFOs within the media and in the public domain. So I could go on with a long spiel. Everyone knows who Thomas is, but also I found out that Thomas today, Thomas, if you're listening, loves classic cars. So if it all goes tits up, we can talk classic cars, because I'm a huge petrol head and I restore myself. So welcome, Thomas Jane.
Howdy. Hey.
Howdy. There, that grabbed your attention. A chick that likes to do up cars. There you go. Well, let's talk about cars. Forget the UFOs. Let's talk about other vehicles.
Okay. Yeah, me and my dad used to work on, we had a constant revolution of different classic cars in our driveway. That's I grew up working on old Fords and Chevys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only time that you ever found your dad, was either in the pub or underneath the car. But or being embarrassed, being taken to school in some unknown object that your dad used to turn up with in the drive.
Oh, I've had that experience.
Oh God, I remember my dad had a Morgan, and he used to take me to school, and I used to get so embarrassed. I said, Dad, and I used to get him to drop me like so far away from the school, because the car door opened the opposite way, and I was just like, Dad, this is so embarrassing. But,
I know, as a kid, my dad had a 1940 Ford Coupe, which was, but it had a souped up V8 in it, and it was loud. It didn't have a muffler. Yeah,
it would be.
So that thing, people heard that thing coming from a mile away, and I was like, Jesus Christ.
Totally. What was that, 4.8? Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember. We dropped a new engine in it. You know, it had the standard motor, but we dropped a new engine in it. I can't remember the specifics anymore.
How amazing, though. I mean, it's just amazing to be brought up around your dad with a car. I mean, I've obviously we've got to talk about UFOs, but they're still vehicles. But I've, out of American cars over here, I had a Chevy Caprice Classic 5.8 V8 done up as a cop car, and I used to rent it out to the film sets. I had a 1977 GMC pickup truck, 2 owners from new, came in from, where did it come from? Vegas, 2 owners from new. Beautiful.
You're driving these things on the wrong side of the road?
Oh yeah, well actually the GMC was a manual, which made it even rarer, but because I got a bad problem with my leg, it was obviously the clutch was so difficult to use.
Sometimes.
But I mean, I've had God knows 8 TR7s, RX7s, the old generation 1 RX7. I had 2 of those. I had, sorry everybody if you're not into cars, I don't give a shit. me and Thomas do. And what's the other? An SL Mercedes, because when I was very young, I used to love Heart to Heart, and I said, you know what, I am going to buy that car. So I bought the Heart to Heart Jennifer's car.
Heart to Heart.
I love Heart to Heart. That is my go-to. That is my go-to.
My mom was a huge fan of Heart to Heart.
I know. And weirdly, I didn't realize it was filmed in Brentwood, and that's where I had my big UFO encounter in Brentwood, Los Angeles. Yeah. So I'd like to go and find it. Find the house and just, peer through the gates or climb over the gate or whatever. But anyways, let's talk UFOs. Let's talk disclosure. Let's talk what's happening in the world today.
Yeah,
because it's really exciting.
Going out with a bang, huh?
Yeah, no, totally. I totally agree. So we'll go to the UAPs that are happening, the drones UAPs that are happening in a little bit later. So Thomas, I have looked and listened to a lot of podcasts that you have done.
Okay.
So in regards to starting off acting, where at what point, because everyone knows pretty much your acting career, where at what point did you start to say, hang on a minute, you know what, I want to get into the UFO field? Because we'll delve backwards and forth. Where at what point did you want to get into the UFO field?
I was I think like a lot of kids growing up, I was into UFOs, but I was also into vampires, werewolves.
Yeah, Lost Boys. I lived in Santa Cruz.
I have I'm actually finishing a graphic novel called The Lichen, which is all about werewolves.
So the lichen, isn't that's the moss that grows on trees, isn't it? Oh, we've lost him. Jay, Thomas might be back in a minute because he was having a few technical issues, so he will be back in a minute. Let's give him a bit of time. Wow. Sorry, everybody that had to hear about cars, but that just had to be done because I absolutely, absolutely love cars. And, you know, it's a part of me. I don't know if anybody really knows that, really. I think cars, cats, and spaceships at this given point. Let's see. Device not connected. There he is. Back in the room. Back like magic. It's all right.
Know what that was.
It's all right. Back like magic. I waffled. Don't worry.
We were talking. We were talking about. So as a kid, I had an interesting experience that I relegated to the dream world.
Okay.
Because it just didn't fit in reality. It was a fishing trip with my grandfather and my father, upstate New York. They're big fishermen. Still are. Nice. My dad is still a huge fisher and a hunter. Spent a lot of time outdoors, and we had a couple of really odd experiences. The one with my grandfather was a very odd flash of a memory of driving at night. My grandfather's old car had a sunroof, and these two balls of fire, but they were round, and they had as they were kind of revolving around each other. You could see the tails from the light, I suppose. And I tried to get my dad's attention, and he just was staring straight ahead, and my grandfather too. They were talking. I'm in the back seat. They were talking, and then suddenly they go quiet. I see these things, and I'm trying to get their attention, and I can't. It's as if they were, you know, as I learned later, switched off. Yeah. And this went on, and then that's the end of that memory. But it's
how old were you then?
I was probably 9, something like that, 8, 9.
That's kind of when experiences start for people. We're usually about 6, and continue. So,
right. So that was odd, and I put that away as just one of those things that, you know, as you grow up, was that a dream? What the hell was that? And it has no context. And then about 11 or 12 years ago, 2011, I had an experience that I absolutely could not explain. And I don't talk about that. The important thing is that it happened. And it suddenly, I woke up a different person, or I woke up and the world was very different. Yeah. And I spent a lot, it sent me on a quest to discover what kind of universe are we really living in for such a thing to be possible. And then I discovered, which blew my mind, that there was this entire field of people who had been studying alien intelligence for decades. And it was completely under society, this subculture of people who were really serious about figuring out alien intelligence here on Earth. It was mind-boggling, and it took me months to wrap my mind around whether or not this was actually even a thing, or people were just, you know, were they hobbyists? making up stories in their free time, or was there something real going on? You know, it's an accumulation of research that led me to the conclusion that we are being interacted with an alien intelligence, Now, define the word alien, you know, that's a black box that you can put anything we wish to put into, right? Alien, you throw it in there and it just disappears out of our reality into something else that we can't explain. So I don't know what these aliens are, but I've got some ideas.
Well,
and more importantly, once I satisfied myself that was a real phenomenon, then came the real work of asking, so what kind of universe do we really live in? And has been my quest, and that led to me writing a book, which I'm editing now. It's called A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens. And that's what I explore. Thousands of books have been written on UFOs and whether they're real, and the Disclosure Project and the government and all that stuff has been covered. What's fascinating to me, and where I think moves the conversation forward, are questions that we've been asking for a long time. Who are they? Why are they here? What do they want? And how did they get here? And what kind of universe do we live in that would allow such a thing to be possible? Because we don't have those answers in science, in social studies. We don't have those answers. In fact, if you talk to people academics who study particular fields for a living, they'll tell you, well, it's not possible, you know, for two reasons. One, how the hell would they get here? You know, planets are really far away, like really far away. Like you can't even wrap your mind around how far away the closest planets are. And two, what's up with all these humanoid encounters?
I love humanoid encounters. I love them.
What's up with that? Like, no scientist is going to say, well, like, wait a second. Now, a humanoid form.
I've had a humanoid. I've witnessed a humanoid, a man at the bottom of the garden. He was always dressed in black. I used to hear him in my head, and I used to then go to the kitchen window and he was there. And I used to shout in the house, he's here and he's back. And then it would be my brother's or my brother's friend or my cousin would run down, and he used to glide like a film dolly, like he's got a camera on on the dolly, and he used to glide backwards towards the barn.
So in my opinion, that's technology.
Yeah, right.
They're utilizing some sort of
telepathy first.
There's several
communication. Yeah, exactly.
Several technologies that really bend us the wrong way. You know, our elbows don't bend like that. So what does that tell us? And what does that tell? So you've got evolution. What does it tell us about the origin of life in the universe? What does it tell us about genetics, DNA? Are they the same? Are they different? And why would another evolutionary cycle on a planet produce an intelligent humanoid form? These are really, really good questions that no one has an answer for.
I did watch your on UAP Studies podcast.
Oh, those guys are
When
great.
Worlds Collide, your presentation.
Yeah, highly recommend.
I would put a link to that because that was absolutely bloody brilliant. I watched that today. It put everything in context. It threw things in that I hadn't even thought of. Totally. There was some really, really good things in there. And so I'll put the link on there for you, because you did the presentation at Contact to the Desert, and that was your presentation, wasn't it?
That was my very first UFO.
Are you shaking?
I was nervous.
Oh,
I'm not I think actors, they can't wait to get up in front of people, but I've always been an introvert. Is not, I'll be nervous for a couple of days before I have
Oh,
to do that.
that's always good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I
But,
well, yeah.
but it was worth it. You know, I put myself through that because I felt like it's worth continuing the conversation.
Well, I'm just going to go back to a question. Now, you didn't talk about it because you don't want to talk about it, but you said that you had an experience earlier, just a moment ago, and you moved on from there. Now, with all of the knowledge that you know, because then you looked into the UFOs, and I'm glad that you said that on the podcast. You're always going to call them UFOs because that's what they are. I'm not doing the UFO thing. I'm old school. I'm traditional. That's what I mean. I've got the biggest UFO book collection in Europe. And it just goes
really?
Goes 360 around the living room, and I love it. So
cool.
And they're all got UFOs on there, and I just, when everyone said UAPs, I said no.
Yeah. That's you know, an attempt, a pretty blatant attempt to.
But what do you think now, though? What do you think now after having that experience? You know, just as a thought, having that experience, then finding this new world that you didn't realize that was out there, and then obviously then, you know, looking up Hynek, looking up all of the big names in the business that have done all of the ground research for us all, and the people have sadly passed away that have been absolutely a rock to all of us. What do you think now from that experience, from the experience that you had, and you said that you weren't sure of and you can't get your head around it, you don't want to talk about it, but can you give me like a little personal bite now of thinking, do you know what, I've now processed it, you know, like let's say 12 years on now, you've processed it, there's so many UFO experiences that are coming out there, contactees, I'm a contactee. What do you think now then? What do you think now to that experience that you had?
What aspects are you most interested in? Because the fascinating.
Personal, spiritual one. That's what it's always going to be about.
Well, you're right. It's a personal experience. And what's really interesting is that's the only way to come to the subject is through your own personal experience. And it's a personal revelation that you have to come to on your own, by yourself.
Yeah. Can take you years to suss out a UFO encounter.
And nobody has time for that, you know? So we're kind of looking, I think, in the majority of humans are just, you know, give me the soundbite, boil it down for me, because I'm busy, you know. I got things to do over here, but I'm interested, you know. What does it mean? Are they here to hurt us? Are they, you know, give me the basics. But just getting to those questions can take years, because first you've got to realize, and I think a lot of people kind of come to the open to the idea, you know, lately, which is great. You know, they're no longer tossing it aside.
But they're only because they haven't had experiences. They're
not knowers.
Exactly.
Right.
So you have to have that experience. And I'll say it took me 10 years about one experience. And then one day I woke up and thought, oh my God, I understand now. That was 10 years. You know, so,
but you know, pygmies live in the Amazonia, and I can say that I know that they're there, but I've never met a pygmy, and I probably never will. So there is a form of knowing that you can satisfy yourself that these things are real. Pygmies are real, and they run around doing pygmy things. And I've never met one. So we can get to a place where society at large knows that we're being visited by an extraterrestrial intelligence. And that's kind of where we are right now. And it's up to us, it's up to the people who know to be able to transmit that message in a way. You know, William Blake said, if the truth can be told in a way that people understand it, it will be believed. And that's our job right now.
With proof as well. And I suppose now, I mean, okay, with what's going on in America and here in England, like at the nuclear bases and things, obviously we know in ufology. Yeah, we know in ufology that they've always been interested in the nuclear bases. I mean, Robert Salas, I interviewed many years ago. Well, I interviewed last year, but I've known him for many years, and it's quite extraordinary. And Dan Willis as well, I've interviewed as well. So, what it's interesting. I've spoke to 3 experiences over the last 24 hours. And each one of them have been visited by orbs.
Recently?
Yeah. My last experience was about 2.5 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, and that was with a black ball above my house that then flew intelligently as I followed it over the power line. I could see it and it could see me. So when people are saying they're seeing these sphere balls, I personally think what's going on out in America and here in England, it's a bit of everybody. It's a bit of military, and it is the UFOs. We as contactees, experiencers, that's all we're asking for. You yourself, that's what you're asking for, is disclosure. Well, they're giving it to us, for God's sake. Whether we in our dream state, whether it be physically in front of us, we are asking for this. So it is for the other people that are non-believers, to decide.
And they're not going to come to this as easily as you are, and I wouldn't recommend it either. What's interesting about what's happening now is we've got several or a couple of different possibilities that, as of today, could be true. Okay. We just don't have enough evidence. These could be genuine UFOs, and they could not be genuine UFOs. Although as time goes on, the UFO window is getting larger and larger. Fascinating. So to ask yourself the question, if the alien intelligence or one of the alien intelligences have decided to execute.
You're right. One of the ones. Yeah, exactly.
One of them, a soft disclosure as opposed to a catastrophic disclosure. This is a good way to do it, because they're not flying craft. They're not, they exist in this liminal space between what we would identify as, oh my God, that's an alien spaceship, to that's a drone, and they're kind of in the middle. They're imitating and this is well known in the field. They can mimic human-made craft. So,
or it could be a projection of screen memory for everybody of the masses.
Yeah, I mean, that would be. I like the idea of that they're mimicking craft. They could also be, creating a sort of holographic projection around their craft. I don't think they need to beam stuff into our brains. I think that these things are really up there. They're not zipping around doing 90-degree turns at 1,000 miles an hour. They're not exhibiting blatant alien technology, but they are continuing. And they're not going away. They're not going away, and they're slowly putting the pieces together. Like reports are coming in that they're not showing up on thermal
radar. That's
numbers, right.
I've got thermal.
That's unusual. So that just seems like they're bending the boundary of what we consider to be possible. They're on the edge of that boundary, and the fact that they're not going away, the fact that they're spreading, the fact that the more we have to say, wait a second, this can't be a foreign actor. Why would the military industrial complex, if they did have highly unusual reverse engineered craft, why the hell would they be doing this? So the possibilities are beginning to narrow as the days go by. Now the question is why, and I don't have any answers, but what I'm leaning towards is that Donald Trump got elected. The forever war complex is being challenged. There's also an underlying new world order, for lack of a better word, that's been going on for 100 years. If you do the research, the elite controllers have been trying to take over the planet for 100 years. And it's only recently that we've actually had the technology to be able to do something like that. Whether COVID was an accident or rehearsed, doesn't matter. They took advantage of the situation to test how the world would react to something like an absolute, lock your doors, we're taken over kind of thing.
And also in COVID, a lot of people then started looking into the UFOs and then starting doing podcasts and then so
the awareness has grown exponentially. The saber rattling for World War has never been, the guys who watch the atomic clock, they're saying it's never been closer to midnight. It blows the Cuban Missile Crisis out of the water. So we're looking at maybe, we allowed Ukraine to use long-range missiles into Russia. We started moving our nuclear missiles to Lakenheath, which is a 4-minute rocket ride to Russia. And if they were able to start an international conflict, the transfer of power doesn't happen. In other words, in America, they retain power. In the case of World War, there is no transfer of power. Trump does not become the new president. They retain the power. So these things combined tells me that perhaps we were so close to nuclear war that the alien intelligence, the digital swarm intelligence that's monitoring our planet has moved into sort of phase B.
I totally agree.
Where they now are changing the narrative and preventing world war. And then you have to ask, well, why? Why would why wouldn't they let us blow ourselves up?
Well, it goes back to many things, isn't it? I mean, the fact is, well, I totally agree with you. I believe that it is probably, plan B. You've got the breeding program, you've got lots of things. I'm not an abductee that remembers having a child taken away. I've been presented with a child by beings before, and that being wasn't mine. Sorry, the baby wasn't mine, but they presented me with a being. That's a talk for another day, and lots of people on my podcast have heard me talk. I had hypnosis with Bud Hopkins and Dolores Cannon, two great legends, and I was very grateful to have worked with them many years ago. But I don't know. I mean, it's quickening up. It is going to be an interesting 25.
Well, here's a couple of things to think about. Researching the 100 years previous, you call it 80 years since Roswell, but then you got another 10 from the Italian crash. Yeah. And then you've got several reports of alien contact, or in other words, human interaction with alien beings that go all the way back to the beginning of the 1900s. The earliest one that I've read about is 1914, but there might be ones happening before that. We sort of begin to lose track of our history at some point. For 100 years, we're looking at several different alien intelligences. I think coming into this subject from the top down, we're thinking it's gray aliens, right? No. Because they've got I've seen
4 different types of beings.
Their hybrid breeding program has gotten a lot of attention, but that's just one race or species or whatever you want to call them. We have hundreds of different types of aliens interacting with us. So it's interesting that they all follow similar guidelines. They're not here doing their own thing. Whatever they're coming from, and you could call it it's a universal club. Space. They're all a part of.
Just a space. They're in another space. That's all.
They're united in that space. They share similar technologies. And they interact with planet Earth in similar ways. There's certain rules they don't break. They don't land on the White House lawn. They do offer people plausible deniability. they haven't just, sort of swarming around, but they have created these incidents like the Phoenix lights.
Right. Yeah, I know, that's phenomenal, wasn't
it? Like Hudson Valley.
Absolutely.
There's different sort of events, and to slowly sort of engage, but it's at our pace. It's not at their pace until now. Now it's not at our pace anymore. Now we're like, wake up, folks. Now, this is just hypothetical. There are other explanations that are on the table that have not been fully vetted yet. But of course, you and me and people like us are going to be. That's going to be forefront in our mind. Are these aliens? And if they are, why? So that's and again, why would they want to stop nuclear war? Why wouldn't they let us blow ourselves up? Because if we're dealing with hundreds or thousands of different alien societies, then what's one more or less? So they didn't make it. They blew themselves up, and we're off to another planet. Or
we look quite beautiful from up there.
It's a great planet, but there's obviously a plethora of great planets. Why are they interested in preserving one? That's a great question. I get into that in my book. Those are the questions that really fascinate me.
When is your book out? When is the book out?
I'm editing it now, so okay. I'm hoping to get it out in the middle of next year. I was invited to be the keynote speaker at MUFON, the symposium in Cincinnati in July, and that's such a great honor to be to sort of close out that MUFON symposium. Gary Nolan is going to introduce. He's going to do the address at the beginning, and it just so happened that my business partner at Renegade, my production company, is getting married on that day.
Oh, ooh.
Of all the days out of the year.
Oh dear,
that's on that day, and it devastates me. Crushed. I haven't talked to MUFON yet. I need to try to figure that out. Maybe I can do something earlier in the week. But boy, I just got this news. It's very disappointing.
Oh no, that's yeah. I've got no advice for that, I'm afraid. Only you can sort that.
Well, it's going to be an interesting conference, because where is this? What usually happens during a flap is it goes away and everybody goes back to normal.
Yeah, right.
So if they accomplish their task, if they avoid World War III and are able to accomplish their task, then I don't see why they'd hang around. They'll probably then go back away. If they don't go away, then we're looking at
that's something very different. A new world. A very, very different.
Then it's a new world. Then the Neo-Copernican revolution is upon us.
Good God, that was a mouthful. What did you say? What did you say?
The Neo-Copernican revolution is upon us. Yeah, Avi Loeb. I think Avi Loeb talks about the Neo-Copernican revolution. Look, it took 200 years, 150 to 200 years, for Copernicus's ideas to finally change the world, where the church finally had to say, all right, we're not the center of the universe. Are you happy now?
Okay, so let's talk about the church as well, because obviously you've got a lot of church people that you've got this.
So let me finish my thought. That took decades to happen. And we're in the middle of another Copernican revolution, where we're not only are we not the center of the universe, we're not the most intelligent things in the universe. We're not the only civilization in the universe. In fact, we're probably somewhere in the middle of a spectrum of life in the universe. And this is a huge thing to wrap our minds around, and it's coming. So why wouldn't they let us do this on our own? Well, they have. They've been doing it for 80 years. But, 80 years is not 150 years. So my opinion is we don't have that kind of time. We no longer have the time to waste. We're closer than we probably realize to annihilating civilization and crushing all of the information that we've gathered up to this point. We go back to zero. It's 12,000 years ago, after the flood, and we have to start all over again.
Yeah,
And
right.
so that civilization, that's the consequence of all that information being lost. And I think that aliens may be interested in being stewards of information in the universe, and our planet has the life on our planet is a huge repository of information. And I think that aliens have probably been aware of this planet for much longer than we could possibly imagine, and that they've been collecting the information, the evolution, which has exploded just over the last couple of 100 years. And all of that information would be lost. And that may be why they're sort of pulling the plug on the, when you're ready, whenever you're ready, we'll be here situation that we've been, exposed to over the past 80 years. Something is different. So it's a fascinating time.
It is. I mean, do you think that they are us from the past? Time travelers, coming back to us. Yeah, that's a great book. Time Travelers from the Future. I've got that book. That's a great book. Do you think
there is evidence to suggest that is going on? I think that humans want to they want to nail this down to one box. They are time travelers from the future. They have been living under the ocean or inside a mountain for thousands of years, a breakaway civilization that continued to evolve 12,000 years ago. They retained the information of that civilization and continued, but not on top of the earth, under it. And then there's the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis that they're interdimensional, and I think that all of these things might be true. I don't think that they're human creatures who have created their own breakaway civilization. I don't think that. They may be alien visitors that have been here for thousands of years, and they've got bases, and they've probably got bases everywhere. I mean, why wouldn't you? Of course, you have bases everywhere. So they've been interacting with us for a long time. But the time travelers were something that I had trouble wrapping my mind around, but I keep hearing different accounts. I'm going to forget his name, but the guy came out on Twitter just last year and had a really interesting account and was told, we are from your future. We no longer live on planet Earth.
I can't remember what my book is. One of the books. Fabulous book, but I can email.
So they're kind of visiting. They're from our future, but they no longer live on our planet. At some point in the future, they've broken off and colonized another planet. Thousands or millions of years went by. They figured out time travel, and now they're visiting their old home.
Exactly. For us as family. The thing is because the bond that you have with them is unlike anything. It's a bit like, it sounds crazy, the love that you have for, let's say, a family member or your pet, right? Let's just amplify that. When you're in the presence of them, there is such a bond of love that, how can it not be some energy that you have, you've dealt with all of your life, so it's more than that. I mean, it's an everyone that knows me knows that this is a total obsession. It's more than obsession because it's a part of me. It's a part of all of my experiences that I've had. I feel that, when they communicate or when I have these, because I get very close encounters, that they're, it's familiar. It feels like, it's a crazy word to say, home. I feel more at home having these experiences than sometimes talking to my mate on the phone.
And we hear this over and over from genuine contactees who actually spend time on board craft with these aliens. Now, I could put a pin in that balloon a little bit. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not true. There is, if you look at the history of alien contact before the abduction phenomenon and before the gray alien stuff showed up, which there wasn't a lot of that going on until the 70s. And then the 80s and 90s, it really took off. But these aliens, when they interact with human beings, a lot of them, early contact cases, they do report this overwhelming feeling of peace and love. And that, in my opinion, is a self-defense mechanism. It's a way of making, you know, look, they're tiny, they're small, they've got all kinds of technology, but if I could calm you down, make you feel at home.
Bloody well try. Yeah, got it.
We're going to get along. This is going to go a lot easier for us. You know, whatever it is we've got planned for you, whatever experiments
it's like
we
want. An ether test before an op, isn't it? Yeah,
this is going to go down. You're going to like this a lot better if we just make you feel loved. And I think it's an excellent, which brings you into telepathy and how they can actually sort of access the human mind.
I mean, when you're having an encounter and they're telling you things in your head, you know, it's quite remarkable. And then when you've got proof, like one time I got told to get out the car. I just got told to get out the car. I got out the car, thought, what the hell? Okay, I'm just going to go with it. Got up on a ledge, took a picture, and I got a lovely picture of something quite marvelous. Now, that was through telepathy, and that's happened at my encounter in Brentwood, Los Angeles as well. But I've had it, you know, like the man at the humanoid at the bottom of the garden. When you say that it could be like a false flag, them saying, calm down, everything's going to be okay.
Oh, it's not false. It's the protective.
No. But as in like, you sort of like trickster tricking me then. I mean,
it's real though.
That way, yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel that it's so deep that, you know, you don't get that love from anybody except for that. I've never felt that before with anybody.
I can tell you that, okay, when we define love, you know, what is that? Why do we love love? Why is that so important to humanity? And the reason is probably
because it makes us nice people.
It's a fundamental feature of the universe. You know, we define it as love, but what is love? Love is closely related to creation, you know, to positive regard, to bringing into being. And that isn't that the essence of life, you know? So when we're attracted to love, we're also attracted to and want to contribute to the creation of life. So I think the love itself is a genuine emotion that is being conveyed to you. They are connecting to something that's valid and real within you. It's not a trick. It's a revelation. And that actually, you know, look, the truer it is, the more valid it's going to be. So why wouldn't they use tools at their disposal that reach deep into the souls and minds of the creatures that they're interacting with?
Well, it's when you did the podcast, when Worlds Collide presentation, you brought up animals in there. And I thought to myself, I'm a beekeeper. I've got 3 hives that are outside the house, and there's nothing nicer than in the morning having coffee outside with them. So it's a love for them. If one's hanging around that shouldn't be where he is, or he's come over to see me, I'll go and take him to the hive. Or if it's one's absolutely knackered on the floor and I can tell he's knackered on the floor, I'll go and put him by the hive. So for me, that's what love is. That is what it's, that's what love should be on every form. It just makes you a better person.
Caretakers,
Yeah, well, Dolores Cannon, Keepers of the Garden. That's exactly what we are. Funny enough, I called my cat Custodian after one of Dolores' book, The Custodians, because she says it as well. Because if you go into past life stuff as well, that's how she started it, and then people started saying that they were aliens and beings. If you start going down that way, down that route, well, my God. You can be Jesus, you can be Nostradamus, you can be beings, you can be anything. I mean, it hypothetically, it just expands. Like you say, you've got a plethora of features there that you can expand to it. But back to love again.
The flip side of love is
well, we know the flip side. It can go bloody wrong.
Okay, let me put that another way. The danger of love
2 minutes
is taking it too far and becoming a helicopter mom, right?
Yeah.
And we have that problem here in the United States. You know, these kids sometimes, you know, they need a little discipline. Mm-hmm. And I think that true love is allowing your children to grow into the mistakes that they make to make them better people, allowing them to fall down over and over and
only
over.
Way to learn. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Until they, you know, steal the keys to the Corvette and decide to drive it through the neighbor's house.
Yeah, right.
We might need to, you know, intervene. And so where is that line? You know, how far is too far is a really interesting question. Would aliens allow us to blow ourselves up because there's so many different intelligences recorded visiting us, that it doesn't bode well. You know, if there was just one, then you could think, you know, wow, we're the other guys. So we're neighbors. It'd be really, we want to take care of these folks. We need to make sure that they survive and thrive. But if we're just one of thousands, millions of different civilizations, you know, what's one. Well, let's go visit planet Xylon, see what's happening there. You know, they haven't blown themselves up yet.
Well, I don't know. Everyone could be on the verge of everything, but we have 30 seconds. Is there anything you'd like to say? And I'd absolutely love to have you back because, I mean, I've got questions that I haven't even asked you because we went as you do. You got 30 seconds. Anything that you'd like to say, Thomas?
Look out for the book, A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens.
Okay, so do I put that your Renegade? What link do you? Well, if you send me a link, I'll put the link up for.
We don't have a link yet. I'm editing the book.
Okay,
so all right. That'll come out. You know, and we'll put it out there. People who are interested will definitely be aware of the book and where to find it.
So, also, are you describing other beings? Because if you are, you can ask me a few questions. I'd love to answer some.
Oh yeah, terrific.
Okay. Yeah,
yes,
all right.
Absolutely. We're interested in who these beings are. You know, it's not just about these little gray dudes.
No, because I'll tell you what.
And they get conflated a lot. You know, a lot of people say that the gray started with Betty and Barney Hill. It's not true. No, these are completely different descriptions of completely different beings with completely different objectives. So it gets a little, you know, it gets more and more interesting the deeper we go.
Well, I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to have a smoke with you as well, but I can't. So, so listen, hopefully part 2. Thank you very much, Thomas. I know it's mid-afternoon for you, but thank you. And thank you for talking cars as well, because I love
always fun. I get excited about this stuff. You know? I don't get excited about talking about, you know, myself or movies or what my latest project was.
There's more to you.
this gets me going. So thanks.
All right, listen, thank you so much for joining us on The Naked Truth, and I look forward to part 2 with you. Have yourself a Merry Christmas, Thomas, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.